Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you all for joining in. As part of preparing ourselves to enter into the pages and the depths of Srimad Bhagavatam and to join the Bhakti Vaibhav course, we are doing some preliminary discussions till the time we get a chance to start it. So we began our discussion on the methods of studying scriptures and the standard formula, which is quite well known. What is that? Shavanam, and Mananam, Patanam. Yeah, just skip my Shavanam, Patanam, Mananam, Nidhyasanam, and Kirtanam. Like that. Sorry, my sound is echoing in my headphone. It looks like I'm in an airplane or something. I'm hearing double. And I'm sitting in a place where devotees are talking outside, so I had to put a headphone. Yeah, Shavanam, Patanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, and Kirtanam. Like that. 5 stages are being described. So we spoke about Shravanam, the importance of hearing and hearing from the right sources. And until Srila Sukadeva Goswami or Srila Vyasadevji had put it down in the written format, everything until that point of time was spoken, verbal. So that Shrunu was the process. We spoke about it, the importance of it. And then we talked about Patanam, Shravanam, Patanam, right? Reading scriptures. And in that, we were talking about different things, setting a schedule for yourself, having a space for yourself, dedication, many things. Almost 8-9 points, I believe, we have discussed. And the last point, which we tried to a little bit elaborate, was note-taking. And we talked about the importance of making notes. And actually, note-making or note-taking practice is good both for your reading and hearing, for Shravanam as well as for Patanam. However, the note-taking practice and the methodology may differ. In case of Shravanam, if I remember correctly, I would have mentioned this point. Some are very good as a scribe. They can very quickly scribe down everything. That's not necessarily needed because that also leads to distraction and loss of information. The best way to scribe is to hear attentively, and the point, the concepts, the flow can be jotted down. And once you've done it, later on after the class, open the notebook, revisit your notes. You can very easily recall what all has happened, like this in case of Shravanam. The advantage of note-taking or note-making we spoke about, it increases your attention. It saves you from drowsiness and sleepiness like that, and you can remain attentive. In case of Patanam, while you're reading, the importance of note-making. This is what I had taught in our Bhakti Shastri program to the students. We all have had an experience when we read, let's say, a shloka, a translation, and then we begin to read the paragraphs 1, 2, 3. How many of you have had an experience by the time you finish the purport, you're kind of wondering, what was this verse all about? What was this shloka talking about? And so we kind of lose track of the thought process and the flow that the verse or the purport builds up. So one of the ways of taking notes while doing reading is something I believe I didn't mention last time. Maybe I can add 1 or 2 points here. Best way is when you read a paragraph, give a title to it. A brief title which summarizes the main subject matter of that paragraph, and try to make it as short as possible, if possible. And imagine, let's say you're reading Ishopanishad. It has around 18 verses. Of course, we'll talk further about Mananam, and I'll talk about how to remember the flows and everything. But let's say you remember somewhere in the 4th verse, which talks about the inconceivable nature of the Lord, the 4th and the 5th verse of Ishopanishad. And imagine you read something very important about some subject matter, in the paragraph, in the purport. Now you open the book. Because it's an important concept, it's a long purport. How much time do we really have to really go back to the same books and keep reading it? But imagine if you have written, a title to every paragraph. And if you just go through the titles, you have very quickly revised the concept or the purport. And when you can easily revise, easily memorize, you can very easily speak about those subject matters, keeping parampara as it is. Presenting Srila Prabhupada. That's about Patanam. do have a marker and or a highlighter or a pencil. Whatever proper beautiful statements in the paper, do highlight it for yourself, so you know that this is something which one of the aspect of hearing and reading is not only to equip ourselves with the knowledge. Knowledge is okay, but it is only as good as we can apply it. And to be able to apply it, we should be able to memorize it to certain aspect. So we should be able to figure it out where is what, like that. And all of you would have experience or would have experience gradually, over a span of time, over years, when we spend reading, literatures or scriptures, it becomes very difficult to keep track of what we read, where we read. And this proper note taking habits can really save us with a lot of hassle. Do you notice these days when we probably started our journey in Krishna consciousness, we only had books of Srila Prabhupada. Now we have got so many books. Literally every month we're getting more and more publications. So how do you keep track of it? How do you really work around with those things? So if you got so many books, in other words, you will notice at least Prabhupada books we should revisit, no doubt about it. But other books will really not have time to revisit. But what we have read, we can really make good use of it for personal application and also for sharing with others if we have made proper notes. So that's the point about Patnam. So we spoke about Shravanam and Patnam at length last time. Let's begin with the third step, that is called as Mananam. Mananam means recall or recollection. Mananam. So the process begins with hearing, and then we have second is Patanam, reading, and third is the ability to recall and recollect. In Sanskrit, we can say in the traditional study of scriptures, Mananam is described to have two steps, and it's a very interesting terminology. And it is said to be Avalokana. Avalokana means to see. And in Mananam, they describe there are two ways to see, two ways to see or to revise the content. One is called as Simha Avalokana, and second is called as Vihanga Avalokana. What is Simha Avalokana? Avalokana means to see. Simha Avalokana is to see like a lion. And second is called as Vihanga Avalokana. What is Vihanga Avalokana? That is like a bird. So let's talk about the first one, Simha Avalokana. If you ever seen Net Geo videos, some of those kind of videos. So a lion, after making its kill, would walk and then would give a backward glance. Will turn his face and will give a backward glance. This is not a side glance, but said to be a backward glance. It looks back to see if the lion has finished his job completely or not, has left something unattended. So you'll often see a photo. If you have seen a photo of a lion looking at you, generally his body is in the forward direction and his face is turned towards backward. So this is called as Simha Avalokana, which means the idea of Simha Avalokana is, let's say you have completed the chapter, you read the chapter. Now, when you look back at the chapter, you should be able to recall the flow and the contents of the chapter. That is called as Simha Avalokana. So this is one very interesting way of study. So when we study, we should prepare our notes in such a way that we are keeping track of how the flow of our scriptures or flow of the chapters went. One quick second, please. So Simha Avalokana, that's the point. So to be able to quickly look back at the chapter, it could be an article. I told you how to read an article or any verse. Always make a title for every paragraph for easy recalling. So the idea is to have a quick look at the flow of the contents or flow of the chapter is said to be, or to understand the chronology is called as Simha Avalokana. The second way, the step of Mananam, the process of recalling, is called as Vihanga Avalokana. What is Vihanga Avalokana? Is a bird's point of view. So if in case, when you have traveled in a plane, you would have noticed when you look out the window, you can see the whole city, which means it's like an overview of the chapter. What are the important things it talks about. So let's take an example of chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. What would be a Simha Avalokana for this? Okay, it has got 72 chapters, 72 verses, and it's been divided into kind of 5 segments. First 10 verses talks about surrender of Arjuna. Next 20 verses talks about I am not the body but soul. The third set of verses from 31st to 38 talks about Karma Kanda. 39 to 53 talks about Buddhi Yoga, and 54 to 72 talks about Atmana. Like this, there are 4 to 5 sections like this. So this is kind of flow, this thing, and the contents, you can say, and the perspective of the chapter, and what is the Vihanga Avalokana, which means the overview of the chapter. In case of the lion, look what we're talking about, that goes into a little more details to the contents. But in the bird's point of view, we have an understanding what this chapter largely focuses on. So that is what the 2 ways of recalling. So when we are studying, if we make proper notes, then mananam becomes easy. So, and studying becomes more interesting when we are able to keep track of this kind of flows and connection between the verses. In our Bhagavad Gita study, you would have noticed when we study Bhagavad Gita, I would often pay attention on the connection between the verses, particularly which is generally addressed by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, because he would bring the mood. He would bring the ideas like reading between the lines. Why did Krishna respond to Arjuna in such a way? And he would bring out the unspoken words between Arjuna and Krishna. And when you look from that point of view, then it becomes like a one sequence, one conversation with a very crystal clear flow like that. So that's about Mananam. So recollection and revision. These are 2 ways which are described for recalling what we have read. So next step after recollection or revision, of course, please pay attention that this can only be effectively done if we have done proper note making. And that's very important. So I told you about how to do note making, Shravanam, Patanam. Then only Mananam can happen properly. And then the next stage of the method of studying comes is Nidhi Dhyasanam. Nidhi Dhyasanam refers to contemplation, going deeper into the meaning of the subject matter which is presented. And one classic example comes is of in the 2nd canto of an interaction between Brahmaji and Lord Vishnu, or Lord Narayan effectively. Lord Narayan had only spoken to Brahma 4 verses and told Brahma, now you do the needful. And then Brahma was asked to contemplate and build up on that subject matter, add with his realizations, and then he spoke to Narada Muni. Narada spoke to Srila Vyasadeva. And like that, we had a manifestation of 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is called as contemplation. You can take another example of Narada, the boy. If you notice when when the Bhaktivedantas left, and when the Narada, the boy's mother, passed away, he began to contemplate on the instructions of Bhaktivedantas. Now, this is a very, very crucial step because it cannot be expected that everything would be spoon-fed. And I like to quote His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj in this regard. On the Janmashtami lecture, he was making a point. Why did Krishna choose the battlefield to speak Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna so that Arjuna is compelled or impelled, not impelled, but compelled to apply the teachings of Bhagavad Gita then and there? So whatever he has studied, now he has to implement it. And before you can implement it, you got to contemplate about it. What is the subject matter? Then only we can do this like this. So that's the idea of this Nididhyasana, where the teacher will not be able to speak everything. The book need not describe everything, but the student or the learner, tries to think about the subject matter and then begins to apply in his or her life. That is what Nididhyasana. But there is a little catch here with contemplation. If contemplation is one end of the spectrum, the other end of the spectrum is speculation. We have to be very careful with contemplation versus speculation. We should not cross the boundary of contemplation where it leads to speculation. So while we are contemplating on subject matter, we should make sure it never violates the principles that are laid out by Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Our conclusion of our contemplation should not change in terms of what has been already established. What will become speculation is where we construe altogether a different meaning. So that's the difference between contemplation and speculation. We got to be careful about it. So reading between the lines is not prohibited, but reading between the lines while trying to find a deeper meaning, we should not find a meaning which is against the established principles of Guru Sadhu Shastra. Now, how this Mananam and Nididhyasanam, Shravanam and Kirtanam is kind of covered as part of your coursework, isn't it? So let's say Bhakti Vaibhav, you'll have classes, there is Shravanam. Then you'll be asked to read, that is called as Patanam. But how does Mananam and Nididhyasanam is kind of included as part of any program? So Mananam is included through closed book examination. So when you write your closed book examination, that is recalling and recollection. That is your Mananam. Now, Mananam is covered, but how is Nididhyasanam is covered? Nididhyasanam is covered through open book examination, where you have to contemplate on the personal application of the subject matter which has been given to you to write. Are you getting it? So like this, the courses that Prabhupada have given to us, they cover, out of 5, they cover 4. And now with Bhakti Vaibhav, you have an added advantage. You'll also get to do Kirtanam, which was not there in Bhakti Vaibhav. So, which was not there in Bhakti Shastri, and it's an added responsibility for me now to entertain all of your kirtans, which you'll be doing during the class. But I'll tell you what that kirtan is in a short while. Okay, so now comes Kirtanam. What is this Kirtanam? If you look back to Nectar Devotion, all of you have done Bhakti Shastri, of the 64 devotional items which Srila Rupa Goswami highlights of the devotional service or devotional life, he says 5 are the most potent. Anyone remembers what the 5 most potent devotional items? Sadhu Sangha Nama Kirtan Bhagavat Shavana Mathuravasa Shraddhaya Shrimurtira Sevana. So Kirtan has been defined 2-3 times in those 64 items. So we spoke at length about it. I'll just give you a summary of it. Kirtan means singing the glories of the Lord. And the glories of the Lord does not refer only to the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Glories of the Lord, just like when Lord Shri Krishna returned to Dwarka, or when Lord Shri Krishna was leaving Hastinapur, all the ladies went up on the roof and they were murmuring and speaking about Krishna. And there Sukadeva Goswami says, their speaking about Krishna was more melodious or nourishing to the heart than the chanting of Vedic hymns by the Brahmanas. That was Kirtanam, Guna, Rupa, Nama, Lila. Speaking about Krishna's Guna, Rupa, Nama, Lila is all called as Kirtanam. So, I mean, what you do after the program is a different thing. But nonetheless, as part of the program, Kirtanam is also covered. I hope it's clear how Mananam and Nididhyasanam is covered. How Kirtanam is covered. As part of Bhakti Vaibhav, all of you would be requested to give, I believe, 2 to 3 presentations as part of the course. So you will be given a topic and you will have to prepare and present. Now, let me ask this question to all of you. If you have to speak, do you agree you'll be forced to undergo Shravanam and Patanam? Yes or no? And Shravanam Patanam to hoga hi hoga. Mananam Nididhyasanam to anyways have to happen when you speak. What is the point of Shravanam Patanam if you cannot recall at the time of speaking? Then you'll become like modern age Karna, who forgot the most important time of delivery, what he had to speak, or what he had to, really recall the mantra. So like this, in this kind of design courses, all the 5 aspects of Shravanam, Patanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, and Kirtanam is included. Of course, in Bhakti Shastri also, I had encouraged that all of you, once you complete your Bhakti Shastri, you start some programs, some outreach. Because when we'll have this outreach engagements, even if as simple as, just get the ladies in your society and mothers can start a reading club, because that will encourage the culture of Shravanam and Pathanam. Like that. So this is about the methods. Among this, I would say everything would be provided for you. Shravanam, Pathanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, Kirtanam, it all will be facilitated by the course. Then what you have to do? What do you think is the responsibility that all of us would have to do as a student? श्रवणम तो हो गया, वो तो टीचर का जॉब हो गया. अब एग्जाम के लिए पठनम भी हो ही जाएगा, थोड़ा बहुत तो पढ़ ही लेंगे. एंड ड्यूरिंग द एग्जाम मननम भी हो जाएगा, रिकॉलिंग. एंड ड्यूरिंग ओपन बुक एग्जामिनेशन निधिध्यासनम भी हो जाएगा. एंड ड्यूरिंग प्रेजेंटेशन कीर्तनम भी हो जाएगा. If that all is facilitated, what is one thing that you are supposed to do, which you only can do it, is beyond us? Among all these 5 steps. Yes, Mother Priyanka.
Prabhuji, it's application to include it in
absolutely
daily
wonderful,
life.
wonderful. Yeah, I was having a different answer, but that's correct. Thank you. Application of it. What else? What else? What you got to do it?
Sincerity.
Sincerity. You're coming for the class is good enough. Sincerity. We take it for granted. Okay, good one. Yes, Madhu Prabhu.
Prabhuji, sharing this knowledge with others so that it can be
Sharing this
helpful.
knowledge with others. Okay. Yeah, that's the last stage. What you got to do from the beginning till the end. Put into practice, that is covered. Put into practice, that will happen gradually. But that is something we have to do from the day one. And that is making proper notes. Making proper notes. I'm reminding you because I have lost a lot of my notes since when I came back from America to India because of my foolishness. So I've got to make proper notes. And when you look back and then you realize when you don't have much time to now read and hear, your life is all hectic. And you remember you've read something, but now how do you recollect? If I wish I would have made some points while reading that book in the book itself. I would have highlighted important sections. I would have given a title to paragraph, or else I would have maintained a small book on which I would have made the notes of whatever I'm reading. That makes a tremendous difference, and that will affect your application, as some of you are saying. That will affect your ability to share that wisdom with others, like that. His case, his sannyasi, his own explication of Swayam Bhagwan Maharaj had recently come. So we were talking to each other. I was in his room, and at that point of time, we're discussing about certain aspects of preaching and personal things. And that point of time, he showed me his notes. Oh man, I have not seen anyone making so many notes. He has made so many notes, so much notes. You tell a subject, he'll type in his search, boom, and the notes are there. So many notes. He has filled up notebooks, one note after one note. And amazing. I was so surprised. I said, Maharaj, how did you manage to digitize everything? I do write pen and paper. He digitized everything. Every classes that he has heard, incredible. And he told me, he said, because earlier I was traveling, I had a lot of time with me to study, but since, 2015, I was in the process of taking sannyas and all that, my life became very hectic. Counseling became, organization became, also my responsibilities came. I have no time. So now every day when I travel, I've been asked to give a class. So any topic comes, I go back to my notes, tolerant, dum. Prabhupada says so, Maharaj says so, everything comes out and I go, wow. I can tell you all of us were eyeing on his notes. Maharaj, can we also get those notes? Our life will also become easy. Of course, I didn't say like that, but in the heart I was thinking, and probably, I remember Maharaj telling me, Madan Sundar, if you need notes, you tell me, huh? Probably he read through my eyes. Anyways, so, but that's a very, very important thing. Okay. That completes the subject matter of method. I'll just
Prabhu, I have one question.
Yeah.
Prabhu, notes are to be made in the book we have to write and keep, or can we put in a word, all these notes to be easy to search? How
Mother,
should we make
is entirely your personal thing. How do you do it? because it's a very personal choice, what is comfortable. Another thing with the note taking, do it such a way that you can properly store it. That's a challenge. What I do often with me, if I'm studying something and if I get some realization or some thought process, I scribble on some paper. And then at the time when I have to use it, I struggle to find it. And so I do maintain diaries now. I do maintain my notebooks now. I do have some digitized version like that. So it's all entirely up to you. And this becomes very handy, as I said, in personal application, as well as in sharing with others when an opportunity. And very important thing, our consciousness needs to be absorbed in Vedic sound. Our consciousness can get absorbed in Vedic sound when we have the ability to recall and recollect what we have read and heard. If we don't have that ability to recall and recollect what we have read or heard, our consciousness will never get absorbed in the Vedic sound. Just imagine you read 45 minutes, you move on, and you move on so much so that you're totally disconnected with what you read. And now, even after 1 hour, you wish to recall something because you're not cultivated and sharpened that technology to really recall. And once you fail, and once you repeatedly fail, then you will stop recalling, making attempts. Similarly with hearing, you heard a lecture yesterday morning. Now, if somebody asks you, "Bro, what was the subject matter?" and you don't remember anything, and it's obviously going to be that we're not going to remember. But in case if you have made notes, we can easily go back to notes, and then we can share it. So Mananam, which is a very important step, we all have to devise our own ways how we, facilitate recalling and recollection. Now, let's say what will happen to somebody who doesn't do it. Now, well, if somebody doesn't do it, it doesn't mean anything changes in his devotional life. He may still continue to move forward, but his absorption would definitely be affected because now he doesn't have a Vedic sound to take shelter of. Imagine, I'll give you an example. Imagine you're walking on the street, you look at a big billboard, and let's say the big billboard is about some new coffee shop opening at the corner of the street. And coffee used to be your favorite before in the college days. Now, if there is nothing in your head, you look at it, what will happen? You will immediately go back to your college days memories, right? Do you remember if in case you have happened to see some movie or trailer of those days and that thing begins to ring in your head again and again? But imagine now, when you look at it and the Vedic sound immediately pops up in your head. Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa Sangaste Supajayate Sangas Sanjayate Kamat Krodha Vijayate. Do you agree that you can now disconnect from that sound and walk away? So this recalling and recollection is very important for our nourishment. I don't want to sound discouraging to somebody who's not able to do it, but it will be difficult to really, become stable, because eventually we have to absorb our consciousness in Vedic sound to be able to, Sanga Sanjayate Kama, Kamesha, Krodesha, Rajoguna Samadhva. There's so many warning verses in scriptures that can save us from this like that. Okay, anything on this 5 steps of studying scriptures effectively? Next, we're going to go and talk about why to study. Anadi and Shuman Pulga. You have a hand up? Go ahead, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Dhanavad Pranam, Prabhu. So, Prabhu, on taking the notes, so there could be 2 options. One is taking notes on the book itself, and other could be making a separate set of notes, say on a OneNote or on a diary. So,
No. 2 things.
Yeah.
Let me draw it very clearly.
Yeah.
One is note making while pathanam. Second is note making while shavanam. I would say pathanam mein agar aap sochoge ki I would digitize my pathanam notes, and it ain't going to happen because none of us have so much time for it. Trust me. Best way of making notes while pathanam is make notes in the book. And then another interesting thing is I did this during our Bhagavad Life program called 5-star puppet. There will be some puppets of Srila Prabhupada will be like diamond puppets. You create a theme for those diamond puppets that you digitized. Vaishnava Sadachar. Hypothetically, I'm saying 2.3.28. That you can digitize Vaishnava Sadachar 2.3.28. Like today, I'm going to refer the verse on why to study Bhagavatam because that was something I had digitized for myself. And that verse, none of us would have remembered because that is not something which is often quoted. But the purport is a diamond purport. That you can digitize because that doesn't take much time. Or else what you can do at the back of the book, you can create an index of golden purports. But while making notes, you got to make sure it is quick and fast. If the moment becomes lengthy and time consuming, it won't work. None of us have time. Everyone is busy with so many things. Fine.
Yes, Prabhuji. So the digitized notes that we are talking about is mostly for Shravanam and
Yeah.
Patnam should happen.
Again, that's up to you. If you are comfortable while sitting, while hearing. For example, in a live class, I don't know how would you digitize unless you're very good and active on smartphone. A lot of devotees does it. We know in the center, many of them do it like this. Or else when you're doing your own personal hearing, that time you can digitize. So that depends entirely upon your utility. Let's go to this very beautiful verse. We're changing the discussion now from methods of study to more fundamental question, why to study? So I'm going to discuss 4 points which I've noted down for our discussion today. First is why to study that I'm going to highlight is conviction. That's the first point I want to speak about. Shraddha, 6.47 Bhagavad Gita. Yoginam api sarvesham mat katinantaratmanam shraddhavan bhajate evam. Shraddha. Shraddha gives us faith, gives us that conviction. Conviction to defeat the arguments, atheistic arguments or impersonalistic arguments. And conviction in scriptures gives us the immunity from atheistic influences. This is the verse that I would like to quote on the subject matter of conviction, second canto, first chapter, verse number 10. Tad aham te abhidhasyami महापौरोषिको भवान् यस्य श्रद्धादतामाशु स्यान्मुकुन्दे मते सति. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. That very Srimad Bhagavatam I shall recite before you because you are the most sincere devotee of Lord Krishna. One who gives full attention and respect to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam achieves unflinching faith. We're talking conviction, faith in the Supreme Lord, the giver of salvation. One who gives attention and respect to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So you signing up for Bhakti Vihava course itself is your, giving respect to Srimad Bhagavatam, that we are willing to study Srimad Bhagavatam, adjust our time like that. But after joining the class, to give attention is a challenge, no doubt, for all of us. But try to give attention to it. Why? It's a beautiful purport. Bear with me. We like to read the whole purport. Would any volunteers like to read? Can kindly raise your hands. I can call upon your name. Okay, Anadi Shman Pro, go ahead. So different devotees can raise your hand. We can have some parts of purpose being read by all of you. Go ahead, Anadi Shman Pro.
Srimad Bhagavatam is recognized Vedic wisdom, and the system of receiving Vedic knowledge is called Avaroh Pantha, or the process of receiving transcendental knowledge through a bona fide disciplic succession. For advancement of material knowledge, there is a need for personal ability and researching aptitude. But in the case of spiritual knowledge, all progress depends on more or less on the mercy of the spiritual master. The spiritual master must be satisfied with the disciple. Only then is knowledge automatically manifested before the student of spiritual science. The process should not, however, be misunderstood to be something like magical feats, whereby the spiritual master acts like a magician and injects spiritual knowledge into the disciple, as if surcharging him with an electrical current. The bona fide spiritual master reasonably explains everything to the disciple on the authority of Vedic wisdom. The disciple can receive such teachings not exactly intellectually, but by submissive inquiries and a service attitude. The idea is that both the spiritual master and the disciple must be bona fide. In this case, the spiritual master, Shukadev Goswami, is ready to recite exactly what he has learned from his great father, Srila Vyasadev, and the disciple Maharaj Parikshit is a great devotee of Lord Krishna. A devotee of Lord Krishna is he who believes sincerely that by becoming a devotee of the Lord, one becomes fully equipped with everything spiritual. The teaching is imparted by the Lord Himself in the pages of the Bhagavad Gita, in which it is clearly described that the Lord Shri Krishna is everything, and that to surrender unto Him solely and wholly makes one the most perfectly pious man. This unflinching faith in Lord Krishna prepares one to become a student of Srimad Bhagavatam, and one who hears Srimad Bhagavatam from a devotee like Shukadev Goswami is sure to attain salvation at the end, as Maharaj Parikshit did. The professional reciter of Srimad Bhagavatam and the pseudo devotees whose faith is based on 1 week's hearing are different from Shukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit. Srila Vyasadev explains Srimad Bhagavatam unto Shukadev Goswami from the very beginning of the Janmadhyasya verse. And so Shukadev Goswami also explained it to the king.
Hare Krishna. I don't know if I should do this exercise, but okay, that will take time. Let me ask you while the screen is visible. Or maybe I'll ask some questions on it rather than asking what's the important point in the puppet. So the discussion is about receiving the knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada says, the process is called Avaroha Pantha, which means descending process from a teacher to a student. For advancement of material knowledge, there is a need for personal ability and research aptitude, which otherwise means jnani, on his own endeavors and intellectually sharp. But in the case of spiritual knowledge, all progress depends more or less on the mercy of the spiritual master. The spiritual master must be satisfied with the disciple, only then is knowledge automatically manifested before the student of spiritual science. Would anyone like to explain this? Because if this is the case, then where is the question of importance of making notes? Then why do we need to do Shravanam Patanam? After all, we just serve and everything would manifest within the heart. It contradicts. Any thoughts on it? Is my question valid? So how do you gain? Let me show the sheet again. How do we gain knowledge? Is the spiritual master must be satisfied with the disciple, only then is knowledge automatically manifested before the student of spiritual science. And was this is not some magic show, huh? The spiritual master acts like magician. No, it's not like that. So how does it, if that's the case, just by service, everything will be revealed within the heart, then why do we need to hear? Why do we need to read? Why do we need to make notes? Let me serve.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yeah.
Yes, Madan.
Just like Sukadev Goswami, actually, when the hearer is more interested and he asks questions which are relevant, the speaker also reveals more and more and with interest. So it is very much essential that once who are hearing should also be very attentive and ask relevant questions, Prabhuji.
Yeah, but that was not at all our discussion in the 5 methods of studying. In methods of studying, I didn't say asking relevant questions. We talked about Shravanam, Pathanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, and Kirtanam. Please justify what we just discussed, now what we're talking about. We talked about note making. And now we're talking about Prabhupada is saying. Everything is revealed when the spiritual master is pleased. So I'm not saying what you're saying is not right. You're right. But I'm specific in this context of what methods of study. Because now the question be, Are jaruti kya hai methods of study ki? Why it is needed, not required. Just serve. And everything would happen. What's the need for CBA and OBA? And what is the need of Shloka test after all? On the gate of Vaikuntha, Jai Vijay is going to take our Shloka interview. And then only we'll get entry. This is trouble. Why creates trouble? How many of you have gone through anxiety attacks trying to give you a shloka test? Raise your hand. How many of you had that anxiety? Oh, shloka. In the beginning is difficult. Now, if you had a little introduction to shloka, anxiety attack in Bhakti Shastri, you don't know what's going to happen in Bhakti Vaibhav. Shlokas are too big. Huge shlokas, you know. So would anyone like to just Aradhya and Shuman Prabhu, please enlighten.
Prabhuji, humble submission. So probably serving the spiritual master itself is the best way to serve the spiritual master is to follow his instructions. And it is the instruction of the spiritual master himself that we should read the scriptures attentively, systematically, and scrutinizingly. Like Prabhupada said in the purport of Bhagavad Gita 1.1. That this Bhagavad Gita is to be studied systematically and kind of scrutinizingly. So therefore, note making is an element that will enable that instruction. So therefore, probably that's the best way to serve, and hence
absolutely. Srila Prabhupada wanted systematic study of his scriptures, his writings, and from different point of view, there should be a discussion. And what we talked about note making or note taking, which is a very important element, that facilitates your study because that plays a very vital role in mananam. Now imagine if in case you're sitting in a class of your spiritual master, you're making notes. Would it be pleasing to Guru? Yes or no? How many of you agree? Okay, let me put it this way. Imagine you're giving a class. Somebody sitting right in front of you is making notes. You will say, at least ek to sun raha hai mujhe. You know, attentively, yes or no? That's it. You know, so I thought I'll just raise it so that we should not get confused. What is the need for this process? Okay, so that was the first part of it. Lord Krishna is described as a Mahapurush in Srimad Bhagavatam. All right, so forth. And Purusha means enjoyer. All right, now last paragraph. All right, Madanjana, please read this last paragraph. So the complete text.
Hare Krishna. So the complete text of Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning with the Zarmadi Asya, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1, verse up to the last one in the 12th canto, SB 12.13.23, was spoken by Sukadeva Goswami for the attainment of salvation by Maharaja Parikshit. In the Padma Purana, it is mentioned that Gautam Muni advised Maharaja Ambrisha to hear regularly Srimad Bhagavatam as it was recited by Sukadeva Goswami, and therein it is confirmed that Maharaja Ambrisha heard Srimad Bhagavatam from the very beginning to the end as it was spoken by Sukadeva Goswami. One who is actually interested in the Bhagavatam, therefore, must not play with it by reading or hearing a portion from here and a portion from there. One must follow in the footsteps of great kings like Maharaja Ambrisha or Maharaja Parikshit and hear it from a bona fide representative of Sukadeva Goswami.
So, studying or undergoing Bhakti Vaibhav kind of programs is going to be very pleasing to Srila Prabhupada because he wanted a systematic study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Anyways, our point of discussion here, why to study? The first point, we were talking about conviction. And why conviction? To give us the ability, to give us the faith, to defeat atheistic arguments, and also to produce immunity against atheistic influences. That's about conviction. Why to study? Second point I would like to quote here is inspiration. We need a constant inspiration and a push from within to keep pushing the outward influences or the downward push by Maya. You know, there's always a tug of war. The tug of war between our Krishna conscious practice with the allurements and temptations offered by Maya. Now, the strength of our push against Maya's temptations depends a lot on how inspired are we in our Krishna conscious practice. Yes or no? If we are inspired, we'll be able to push harder. But if we are not finding that inspiration, then our push becomes weak. So what does it mean, inspiration? How do we get inspiration? Inspiration means It acts like a guiding light where we know where to go. And for that reason, Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter, verse number 3, Sukdev Goswami says, yes, yes, Nubhavam Akila Shruti Saramekam Adhyatma Deepam Atiti Satam Tamu Andham. So it talks about Sukdev Goswami. We discussed this shloka last time also. The nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam has become more relishable because out of the compassion of Srila Sukdev Goswami, who, just to dispel the darkness of ignorance created because of the influence of Kali Yuga, Srila Sukdev Goswami spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I believe in the third chapter of this first canto itself, when the question was asked to Sutta Goswami, what did and of whom, Dharma took shelter of after the disappearance of Krishna, at that point of time, Sutta Goswami said, Krishna Sudhama Upagate Dharma Jnana Visaha Kalo Nashtra Dashamesha Puranarko Udunoditaha. And that time it means Krishna Sudhama Upagate. When he went back, Dharma Jnanadi Visaha, they also went back. Then what happens? How do we get Dharma and Jnana in this age? Kalau Nashta Darshamesha. So the Kali Yuga, to destroy the influence of Kali Yuga, which has been compared to a fog. Puranark Udunodita. The essence of Puranas, that is Srimad Bhagavatam, Puranark Udunoditaha. It arose. Just like every morning when sun rises, the fog disappears automatically. So like that, the influence of Kali Yuga got dissipated. So in other words, when we take shelter of scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam, and nothing can be more important than Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada started his preaching on the strength of Srimad Bhagavatam. He went to America on the strength of Srimad Bhagavatam. The first book distributed in ISKCON was Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srila Prabhupada dedicated his life to translate Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavad Gita teaches about the goal is love of Godhead. But Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us how to love God by sharing the examples of all those devotees who, even in their crisis, did not give up the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, beginning with Uttara, Kunti, Bhishma Dev, Parishadma. These are some examples in first canto only. All right, that's about inspiration. We need some push. The inspiration comes from this guiding light in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. Why to study? Third is purification. And for that, I would like to quote, where is my screen sharing? There are many verses can be quoted. I like to quote two verses, 2.2.37. Pibante ye bhagvat atmanah satam kathamritam shavanapateshu sambratam punanti te vishaya vidushitashayam vajanti tasharana saroru antikam. Those who drink through oral reception fully filled with the nectarian message of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life. What is that? Material enjoyment. And thus go back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of Krishna. Nashta prayashu bhadreshu nitam bhagavata seva. We always recite the shloka, we know that. So pibanti means to drink. Ye bhagavat atmanah satam katha amritam, who regularly drinks the nectar of Lord's katha. Shavana puteshu. How do they drink? Through the ear holes. Sambratam. Shavana puteshu sambratam. Punanti te vishaya vidushita shem. The vishaya, vidush means to contaminate. So the contamination of the heart that has occurred because of vishaya, sense gratification. Punanti te, to purify. Those who regularly hear kathamritam through their ear holes, they get purified. Tada rajastamo bhava kama lobha yaschaye. Like that, satam satvi pasidate from the first canto. So those who regularly read Srimad Bhagavatam, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, they get purified. Sharvatam Taha Krishna, Punya Shavana, 1.2.17, if I'm correct. Yeah, Sharvatam Sakataha Krishna, Punya Shavana Kirtana, Hridantosti Abhadrani, Vidunoti Surasatam. These are standard verses which talks about how those who regularly hear, the glories of Lord, Punya Shavana Kirtana. What happens? Hidi Antastu Abhadrani, all that Abhadra, unwanted things hidden within the heart. Vidunoti Surasatam. Something like when a dhobi goes to the bank of the river and he beats the clothes to clean it. Like that, the purification of our heart happens. And finally, the fourth point, why to study scriptures. The first point was conviction. Second was inspiration. Third was purification. And the fourth that I would like to say here is freedom. Beautiful stroke from first canto. Yasya vai shruyamanaayam Krishne paramapurushe Bhakti utpadyate pumsaha Shokha moha bhayapaha. And Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, give up. Vita raga bhaya krodha. Here Krishna talks, or here Sukadeva Goswami says, how this raga bhaya krodha would automatically go away. Shokha moha bhayapaha. So, yasya vai shruyamanayam. Hearing. In our context, hearing, reading more or less the same. Because by reading Prabhupada, first we are literally hearing him in that sense. Yes, anyways, this is a organized program, so you will definitely get to hear also. Yasyam vai shruyamanayam Krishna paramapurushahe. Those who give oral reception simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature. Bhakti utpadyate pumsaha. Pumsa means living entity. What develops? Bhakti. And shoka moha bhaya apaha. Apa means जलती आग को बुझा देना, उसको कहा जाता है आपहा. Shoka moha bhaya. So lamentation, illusion, and fear is this disappears from the life of that individual who regularly hears the glories of Lord Shri Krishna. Hare Krishna. So with that, I will end our presentation here for today. It's 8 o'clock. So we concluded the subject matter of methods of study, and we also added the subject matter of why to study. Any concluding comments or questions before we conclude it for today? So our subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam will be beginning from today's 14th. I have a last class of my ongoing batch on 21st afternoon, and 28th is when we're going to start our Bhakti Vaibhav classes. I believe all of you are aware of the time is from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. every Saturday afternoon. So all of you have joined the program. Are you munching? Are you doing Nidhi Dhyasanam on joining the program? Or you have convinced, or you're already part of the program? I don't know what exactly is going on with registration. How many of you are already part of the program, have joined the program, or are looking for some auspicious day to register for the program, whichever way holds true? So get to see. Varun Prabhu, Madhu Prabhu, Mother Anjana is there. Anadi and Shuman Prabhu is there. Can you all raise your virtual hands? It's easy to see. So everyone can raise virtual hand through the Zoom setting. So it will be easy to count that way. All of you are doing Nidhi Dhyasanam. Those whose hands are not up. Contemplating. All right. Okay. Anything else on what we discussed? Anyone has any
Hare
questions?
Krishna Prabhuji, what is the meaning of the word Nidhi Dhyasana?
That means contemplation, Mother.
Oh, okay.
Nidhi Dhyasanam.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
All right. So thank you all for joining in. So I'll conclude here unless anyone has anything to share. Madhu, Prabhu, last shloka canto number means?
Last shloka number was Prabhuji.
1.7.7.
Okay.
Yasyam Vaishruyamanaya Krishna Paramapurushe. Okay, so I will let you know if in case I have something else to speak on the next Saturday, or else we'll directly meet on 28th afternoon when we start with our Bhakti Vaibhav program. Maybe on next Saturday I may give a little orientation to Bhakti Vaibhav program also. That's important. Varun Prabhu, remind me of that. We'll have an orientation of Bhakti Vaibhav program, how the program would be placed, some tentative timeline for it, and what would be the assessment type, everything. Probably I'll do that. So that way, 28th, we begin directly from Canto 1, Chapter 1, verse number 1. We don't have to spend time on this organizational things. Okay, thank you all for joining in. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada.
Prabhuji, you'll be sharing
Yes.
the handbook also, no, Prabhuji?
Sorry?
The handbook.
Correct. So we'll get you the soft copy of it. Those who are
Yep.
online, those who are local will get them the hard copy, like that. Handbook. Yeah. This handbook in the sense it's about questions. That's
Yeah,
there.
the OBAs and all the
Correct. So
other
that definitely will provide to all of you. Okay. Yes. Hare Krishna. Thank you.